Welcome to a session on civil disobedience by Henry David Thoreau. So, Henry David Thoreau is an American philosopher, an environmentalist, poet, and essayist. He is a leading transcendentalist. So, the concept of transcendentalism itself, you can see how it reflected through his writings, his and Emerson's writings. And one of the best known works of Thoreau is Walden, and Walden was published in the year 1854, and it documents his experiences of living in solitude very close to nature at Walden, near the Walden Pond in Massachusetts, from 1845 to 1847. It was more like an experiment that he conducted based on the concepts of individualism and self-reliance. So these are both concepts that emulate in most of the American literature writings, that is individualism and self-reliance. And the essay Civil Disobedience, it was written and published in the year 1849. It is related to non-violent resistance to the government, and civil disobedience, it means relating to the citizens' relationships with one another and the state. So the writing style of Thoreau, it interweaves close observation of nature. There is personal experience that he talks about. There is pointed rhetoric, symbolic meanings, and historical lore, while displaying a poetic sensibility and philosophical austerity. And Thoreau is someone who pursued philosophy as a way of life and not solely a lens for thought and discourse. So it was not just in his writings that he used philosophy, he also emulated that in his life and the way he lived. So strong influence of the essayist and founder of transcendentalism, Ralph Waldo Emerson. So you can see how Emerson's concepts has really influenced the writing and philosophies of Thoreau. And the first writing published in the journal The Dial, and it was criticized American institutions, especially slavery, and actively supported the abolitionist movement. So these were the two things that he was vouching for: abolition of slavery, and he was also for the abolitionist movement. And he was a proponent of limited government and individualism. Now, there are a few important contexts in the essay, Civil Disobedience. The first is transcendentalism. So, transcendentalism is the idealistic stand against materialism, tradition, conservatism, and orthodoxy of politics, as well as Unitarian Church. Okay, and it emphasized the importance of individual and his need to transcend ordinary life and invest life with spiritual worth. Then he also believed that truth and meaning lie within the human soul or conscience, and the individual should turn inward in solitude and practice self-reliance. Okay, so relying on yourself was the biggest motive and biggest thing that you could follow according to a human, according to transcendentalism. Now, the next context of the essay, abolitionism. So there were widespread protests against slavery and slave laws at this time in New England, which centered in Concord, Massachusetts. So after this essay was published, it came controversial fugitive slave law in 1850, which helped the slave owners and denied slaves the right to trial. So there was a huge movement happening. There were a huge slave trade happening, and this law actually supported slave trade. And it was actually supported by politicians like Daniel Webster. Now, American Anti-Slavery Society in Philadelphia, established in 1833, promoted non-violent resistance. So Thoreau was very critical of some of the indirect modes of resistance that they advocated. Slavery, it came to an end only at the end of Civil War with the Emancipation Proclamation made by Abraham Lincoln. So the second context of this particular essay is abolitionism. Coming to the third context, Mexican-American War. So USA under the President James K. Polk started a war on Mexico. They seized land from Mexico in 1848 with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, and this land which was taken from the original Mexican area, it was called the Mexican Cession, and it formed the southwestern American states like Texas, Nevada, New Mexico, Utah, Arizona, California, and parts of Colorado. So many Americans felt it was their manifest destiny to seize that land. And almost, doubled this session, Mexican session, it doubled the size of United States, especially the agrarian South, leading to the imbalance between the slave states and the free states. So these are the three contextual aspects on which this particular essay is written. Now, to give you a short introduction, the full title to the essay is Resistance to Civil Government, and it was derived from a series of lectures entitled The Rights and Duties of Individual in Relation to Government. And it showed his belief, Thoreau's belief in the right to self-determination and deeply anti-authoritarian perspective. And it was the term civil disobedience was coined by Thoreau to describe his refusal to pay the state poll tax implemented by the American government, and also to prosecute a war in Mexico. So the practice of civil disobedience is as old as Socrates. It's not something that was recent. So the key argument in the essay is individuals should not permit government to overrule or manipulate their consciences, and they have a duty to avoid allowing such acquaintances to enable the government to make them the agents of injustice. So how one man, one person should be able to defy the government if it is not in the right form is what civil disobedience talks about. Thank you.